Yes, boys. So, in today's video, I want to speak about how to absolutely ace every single high ticket sales interview you'll ever have. And I'm going to give you 3 tips. If you stick to these 3 tips, I promise you, you're going to have a very, very good shot at actually being able to see success. Because there's only really a few things that you need to do. And I think most of the industry is just sleeping on these things, right? Number 1, your Loom videos, okay? Now, generally speaking, when a company or a role asks you to give a Loom video, do not make it more than a minute 30 seconds. Do not make it more than 90 seconds because nobody cares about your life story. And if you think from the perspective of somebody who's hiring for a role, I've had to be a part of the process where I'm doing this, right? I know how much effort it takes to actually go through and look through Loom videos. Nobody wants to hear your life story and what you did and what you achieved. They need to see specific information. If they hear those key things and they get a good energy and a good vibe from you, that's going to be enough for you to be able to, inshallah, make it to the next stage and land the role, okay? So when it comes to your Loom videos, you want to make them around 90 seconds, and please make a specific Loom video for each role that you're applying for. Do not make them generic. Do not make one video and send it out to everybody, because everybody can see that, and that just shows that you did not put any effort, okay? Most of your competition is doing this. Do these small few things and you'll be able to separate yourself, okay? So make a specific Loom video for each different role, okay? You want to have a quick introduction, giving a very brief background on where you're at, what you've done, what your experience is. You want to mention numbers. Wherever you can mention numbers, and how you played a role in achieving them, how you like what your journey was to achieve them, what it was like. And essentially you then want to move quickly onto showing the company why you're a fit for that company specifically, right? So one good way to do this, I mean, a lot of my audience is Muslim. So if you're actually looking for a Muslim offer owner, you want to mention things like you resonate with their ideal customer, right? You'll be able to speak to them at a more deeper level. If, for example, now you're trying to go for a fitness offer, you probably want to mention your own fitness journey, how it was able to shape you, how you are competent in that field, and you want to, basically shift what you talk about based on the offer that you're actually speaking about, okay? It just shows that you're way more competent than the random person who has no idea and about the offer that you're selling, right? The number one thing is that these people who are hiring for offers, they need to see and they need to feel comfortable trusting you with speaking to their customers, right? So if you have no idea about the offer or what it takes, and I'm not saying you have to have extensive knowledge, you can learn a lot of things along the way, but if you have absolutely no clue, it's not going to look good, right? So like I said, most of these offer owners, all they need to feel, it's really a feeling, they need to feel comfortable in letting you speak to their customers, right? If they get that vibe, chances are you're going to get the role, okay? Now, why is this important? Because I see this time and time again. These are basic things. Please, for your own sake, just put some thought into how you're actually presented, right? What does your background actually look like? Can you see your bed in the background? Like, come on, bro. Like, what are you doing, really? Make sure you've got a nice, presentable background. Either if you are in a really tight space and you can't really get into something which is presentable, okay, no worries. Just face like a blank wall. Ideally, try and get some paintings on there to make it look a little bit better. But just have a bit more of a presentable look, a more professional look. Because think about it, if I'm picking a salesperson, I want to just make sure that my customers have a really good time speaking to this person. And if they're talking to somebody who you can see, his bed in the background and his dog in the corner and a mess everywhere, why would I pick that person? Like, I wouldn't. So just put yourself in the perspective and put yourself in the shoes of the person that is hiring you. Would they want you to speak to their customers? If yes, if you look professional and you look simple, you don't have to have some kind of crazy setup. It just needs to be somewhat presentable, okay? If you can do that, it's calm, right? And yeah, just show up. I would say, you don't have to, it depends on the offer, but if you're, for example, now, if you are speaking to people who are, you know, C-suite level executives and the offer is very B2B and it's very professional, then you probably want to have more of a smart attire on, right? Dressed apart. If you're speaking to a fitness offer, maybe you could get away with something a bit more loose, a bit more active wear, because your customers that won't be weird for them, right? If you're speaking to a Muslim offer, you could actually be wearing a thobe and, you know, in a kufi and stuff. It won't be too weird, because that's the vibe, right? Match the vibe, okay? Generally speaking though, what I would personally recommend is always show up like not necessarily super formal, but just presentable, right? If you've got a polo, put it on. If you've got a nice jumper, put that on, right? That kind of protects you from underdressing too much. Not underdressing, but you kind of get what I mean, right? So yeah, just be somewhat fairly presentable. You don't have to put on a 3-piece suit or anything, but just look presentable, right? Look clean, look smart, look well presented, look well dressed, and you'll essentially be able to just, these little things are just going to help you improve your chances. At the end of the day, like, sales is a game where you are simply just trying to improve your chances of being selected, right? And these little variables, if you just control them, you'll be able to actually have a way better chance of landing the role and potentially completely changing your life, right? That's why these things are not something that you should just take super lightly. You should actually give it some thought, right? Don't see it as something which isn't deep, because the reality is you are one role away from completely changing your life. And I mean that, like, truly, you're one role away from changing absolutely everything. So just please dress well, show up, look the part, and then it comes to actually your energy on the call, right? Sometimes people say have high energy, sound confident, but that's not often actionable. And I want to kind of break it down into a few different steps, because this really helped me. Firstly, what does it actually mean to be confident? So physically, when you're actually on these interviews, actually, like, sit back on your seat and just pump your chest out a little bit. And some of you are going to be like, oh, what is this stuff this guy's talking about? But genuinely speaking, if you manipulate your body, your actions, and you actually start to speak differently, you feel differently, right? Pump your chest out, and I don't mean like in some weird way, but just sit confidently, sit upright, okay? Sit back on your chair so you're not over tensed and you're like, ooh, like, what's going on? People can feel that. Sit back on your chair, right? With a good posture, with your chest out, right? And actually use your hands as well, right? If you're speaking to somebody, if you're very rigid and tight, these are ways people can differentiate between confidence and nervousness, okay? Use your hands when you speak. Another thing, speak slower than you usually would, okay? Take some brief pauses. When you're speaking to the interviewer, if he asks you a question and you're like, yeah, my name is Ayun, and I really want to be high ticket sales, and like, I'm amazing for this role, like, that neediness can be seen, right? You want to just speak slowly. My name is Ayun. I've been in the high ticket sales space for X, Y, and Z. I came across this opportunity. This is why I feel like I'd be a good fit, okay? Just slow it down. Talk like a human. People just want to speak to people who have a nice vibe. And when people say have a nice vibe is such a subjective word, but it's these little things which make you come across way more comfortable and nice to be around, okay? So that's another thing. Speak slowly. Have good eye contact, like, actually look at them. If you're looking away from the camera, it's going to feel like you're very nervous. You don't actually want to be there, right? And yeah, so these are a few ways that you can actually look presentable and you can come across as confident. Speak slower, okay? Cool. This is all to do with like the Loom videos, right? Now, when you're actually on the call, as I mentioned, these people want you to represent the company. So if you can speak to the ICP, that's going to be huge. And if you can relate with them in any way, that's going to give you a huge advantage, okay? Another one, yeah, just come across as a person who is nice to be around, because customers buy from people who they like, okay? Some of these offers you'll see, and it depends on the offer you're on actually, because sometimes certain sales processes, certain sales styles actually work way better. If you're selling to a guy who's in his young 20s, and you are someone who's maybe a little bit older, your mid 20s to early 30s, you could probably get away with that aggressive style of selling, because somebody who's younger than you, who wants to be like you, is going to fit into your authoritative frame. However, if you're now speaking to someone who owns a business and you're a 25-year-old guy, he's a 30-year-old successful guy, if you're trying to sell him in an aggressive way, chances are it's not going to land as well. Okay, so it depends on who you're actually speaking to, who your customers are actually going to be. But generally speaking, be pleasant, be easy to get along with, but be somebody who can actually speak with confidence, speak slowly, speak articulately. And these are all skills that you can practice, right? I'm by no means amazing at any of these, but these are things that I practice every single day. And you actually get better as you actually have sales calls, as you actually are on the journey of sales. You actually get better with these things. Okay, so that's another thing. Now, this tip I feel like is so overlooked. Nobody talks about this, and this is all about objection handling. This is your perfect ideal time to just objection handle, right? Let's say you get to the end of the interview and they say, look, we don't really, for whatever reason, or they don't say anything. They say, great interview, da 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 da. Always at the end of that interview, you want to actually get like a temperature check. You actually want to give yourself an opportunity to actually objection handle. So you could say something very similarly to, based on everything we've been through and the conversation that we've had, do you feel like I'd be a good fit for this role? And there you'll actually get an objection, or you'll get something which you want to hear, which is, yeah, you know what, we actually feel like you're a really strong candidate. Or if they say no, or we're looking for, sorry guys, if they're looking for a bit more, like if they give you an objection, let's say they say, we want someone with a bit more experience. But you want to handle that. This is your opportunity to actually prove and showcase that you can handle objections. So what do you want to do when you first get an objection? You want to get clarity around that. Okay, well, when you say experience, like what is it you're actually looking for when you're looking for someone experienced? Like, what kind of behaviors are you actually looking for? They might respond with something like, well, we want to be able to have somebody who is confident, who can handle, let me see, they might say something like, we want someone who can handle difficult conversations and not lose their temper when they're speaking to certain kind of prospects. Or we want somebody who is actually able to articulate themselves well. And whatever that may be, whatever objection that they give you, well, you just need to handle that. So you can say something like, well, if you were to find someone who had all of those behaviors and was hungry and coachable and willing to put in the work, maybe they didn't have the experience, but they had everything else, and they were actually willing to work harder than everybody else on the team because they had a point to prove. How would you feel about actually moving forward with that kind of person, right? You could even do like an upside downside thing, upside or the downside, worst case scenario, you try giving somebody a shot, maybe they're not the best fit, and at least you had somebody who was willing to work hard for your company and actually give it a shot. Upside, we could develop a really long relationship. I could produce you long, consistent results, and yeah, something where you actually take a moment to objection handle. They'll actually see your ability to how you're actually going to come across to these prospects when they give you an objection, right? And 9 times out of 10, sometimes it's just something which maybe there was just some miscommunication or misunderstanding, and that was your opportunity to actually clear it. But because you didn't actually try to objection handle, you didn't, right? Maybe they were like, oh, we want somebody who can work XYZ hours, and you didn't even actually get clarity on why they might not want to move forward with you. And you could have, and it could have just been something simple, and you would have got the role right there and then, right? So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Those are 3 tips. I feel like I can make very specific videos on each of these topics, to be honest. But just as a general rule, if you think about these few things, most of your competition is not doing any of this stuff. They don't show up well. They don't show up prepared. Another thing, before I forget, is actually do a little bit of research on the role that you're actually going to be applying for. It just shows that you're somebody who's willing to go out their way a little bit more than the extra person, and it just comes across way more. Like I would way more want to hire somebody who actually did some research on my company than anybody, right? So there's a few points I mentioned there, but main 3 points are, with your Loom videos, make them well, dress well, present yourself well, speak confidently, make specific videos, okay? The second thing I spoke about was, actually coming across as a person who these guys will be happy to let you speak to their customers, There we go. And third thing is objection handle. Genuinely, objection handle the interviews. Like, you don't just want to let them get away with it. Don't let them get away with, oh yeah, we'll see, we'll let you know. Okay, and don't be aggressive about it, but it's just like, so what are some of the things that are actually gonna what are things that you're looking for that are going to help you move forward with a person for the role, right? That at least gives you the opportunity to know what they're actually looking for, right? Things like that. So these are just some brief hacks. Hopefully this was helpful. Put them to use. Let me know how they go. Drop a like, subscribe, inshallah. Comment for what else you're looking for, and yeah, inshallah I will see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.